guys, Luke here. I'm with Hannah, who is a mother agency here in the US, but she is also a Scout with Next. Hannah, thank you so much for being with me today. I have a few questions if you have just a minute.
I do for you anytime.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, my first question is, how did you actually get started in this business?
I love this question, and then I always try to make it short, but there's really no short way to answer it. But I'm going to do my best. So I modeled, I was scouted, in the mall, like I think most girls are. There's scouts everywhere, and 6 foot blonde walking around, 13 years old. In the beginning it was kind of scammy, modeling schools and such, but I went to a model search called Manhattan Model Search, which was like the big thing at the time. And you walk down the runway and show your pictures to all the agents, similar to what you and I do, Luke, when we go to these conventions. So it's really full circle. But I ended up choosing an agency which was called L'Agence at the time, down in Miami Beach. And they were eventually bought out by a couple of other agencies. It was Michelle Pommier, then Wilhelmina, and my career kind of really took off, except I was playing violin, I was dancing, I was on the basketball team, but I got some work in between that. And I ended up, once I went away to university, they called me to go to Milan. So I moved to Milan for a few months, and I kind of did that whole circuit that the models do.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, I just wanted to finish university, so I kind of quit. And I had bumped into the director at Elite in Miami at that time, who was I was almost graduating university, and I bumped into him, and he's like, "What are you doing with your life?" Because he was actually my booker back in the day. He was like the person that discovered me and started me, and then he went over to Elite. He's like, "Do you want to come, work for me? Are you looking for a job?" So I moved my life from Boca Raton, where I was going to university, and to Miami, and I just kind of walked in. He threw me in the fire. He's like, "Okay, this is how you do a visa. This is how you put a book together." And I was like, I didn't really think it was going to be a long-term thing, but really what appealed to me is that he started sending me out on scouting trips. You
Mhm.
know, hey, pack a bag, go to New York, go stop by all the agencies, see who they're representing, who might want to come to Miami. Same thing in Europe. And it just got bigger and bigger. And, I was on a plane all the time, literally every weekend, because back then, in the early 2000s, those model conventions were still going strong, and they were everywhere all the time. So it just evolved from there. And it was really the travel that kept me going. And then, as you know, Luke, we kind of fall in love with the industry, and we want these girls to do well. And we put our heart and soul into it. So here I am. It was not in my plans at all, but it just happened. I thought it was going to be a part-time job, or at least until I got on my feet. But you just can't get out of it.
I know, yeah. I think that's one of my favorite questions too, is to ask how you got started, because everybody's story is similar in the way of, well, I didn't really plan on this. I don't think anybody really grows up saying like, oh, I want to be a model scout, or oh, I want to be a model agent, but somehow we fall into it and then we end up falling in love with it. And once you're in, I feel like you're in. Most people, there's the lifers, right? And we're lifers. We'll always be in the business in some aspect. But when you're scouting, Hannah, what is more important to you personally, just when scouting, looks or personality? What do you look at more?
I have to say, when you're scouting, and mind you, I'm 5'11", so I can kind of see things a little bit from my perspective. And of course, the first thing I'm looking for is someone who's slightly taller. So
Okay.
it's, if you are in a crowd of 2,000 people, you can already eliminate 98%, right? So that makes it easy. And especially because I'm tall, I can kind of see who's tall. But I can be attracted to someone's look, and I can approach them. And it's hard if I don't see that sparkle, or my heart's not warm and fuzzy. I just kind of, I was like, it's not going to work. Or they
Yeah.
come to the agency, or mother agencies send girls to us at the agency. And it boils down to personality. And I can't say it always used to be that way, but now it is, because the world has changed, the brands have changed, and they want this girl to be relatable, and that's going to come out in their personality. And I'm like the first one, if I have to do Polaroids on someone, if someone comes into the agency and I'm not feeling it, it's hard for me to take the picture. And
Right.
you taking a Polaroid, you're just like, oh, that's so easy. But sometimes I just can't do it. I'm like, all right, just take a break.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
let's.
Personality is super important for me too. That's one of the main things because there's been many of male models that I have scouted and they just don't have personality. And it's like, I just don't really want to work with this person. I'm not inspired. I'm inspired by your look, but not your personality. And so if they don't have the personality, it does make it hard. So I agree with you. But what are some of the physical features that you personally look for when scouting?
It's hard to say, because we tend to think beauty. Oh, I look for a beautiful girl. I look for a
Right.
beautiful guy. But it's more someone that's interesting. You look at them and it's funny because when you're a scout, like you and me, we know what's interesting. I think the average person would see like, oh, look at that girl. She's so beautiful. She's a cheerleader. She's the homecoming queen. She's got the
Right.
big hair and she's so perfect, but that's not something that we're attracted to. Yes, that can be someone we're attracted to, but in general, it's this girl you see pass and you're looking at her and you're like, you just want to know more. Well, she's tall, he's tall, she has a cool bone structure, maybe she has cool hair or cool freckles or something that's really attractive, and you're like, I think I'm going to go up to her
Right.
or him, and then when you get up and they're like, hi.
Yeah.
Oh, never mind. Sorry, I thought you were somebody else. Because
Yeah.
then you like backtrack. It took you all this kind of courage to walk up to this person. Then when you do it, and then you're like, dang it.
Yeah.
But I would say definitely we say beautiful, and yes, beautiful is a factor in a lot of ways. But there are girls, and I know my own mom. I'll show her some models. My mom's like, that's not a model. Like, oh my god. And I was like, Mom, trust me.
That's
You
what
know,
my mom does too. She'll be like, "That's not what. Or, why did you scout this person?" I'm like, "This is my job, not yours."
I know.
Ask questions.
And my mom's like, you need to give me some of your cards and I'm going to pass them out. I'm like, no, don't
No
do
thanks. No
that.
thanks.
Give my mom cards. I was
Yeah.
just visiting her. She's like, she's going to type up some pamphlets for me because I told her when I'm scouting, and this is another issue, maybe for another time, that I'm handing out cards or I'm stopping people and they're running away, or I'm not interested, or
Yeah.
I've been scammed. I don't want to go down that road again. So things that are going on with other kind of like fake scouts or people that are trying to take your money, it's really hard. It makes our job harder when we're coming from, the actual real industry. And
Right.
so I was like, Mom, no pamphlets. She's like, but then if they can read about you, maybe they won't run away. I'm like,
Right.
okay, you're right, Mom. So she's working on it. I just want you to know.
Okay. Well, thanks, mom. At
Thanks.
least she's trying to help out.
I know.
So, what are some positive changes that you have seen personally in this industry since you've gotten started? Something that's stuck out to you that's a positive change.
Okay. There's a lot, and then because as we know, the industry's been hard, post COVID. Some companies have tanked, not agencies, brands.
Right.
Rates have been slashed, but on the flip side, there are more and more opportunities for more models. So people who might not have fit in a box pre-COVID, pre-inclusivity,
Right.
are now being given a chance. It could be the hips are 2 inches bigger, and then maybe they're a little bit shorter, maybe they're a little bit taller. And again, these are all special cases. It's not like, oh, you're 5'6", it's okay for everybody. No, I mean there's a lot of factors, but it has really opened up, which has made it, I would say, mostly positive.
Right.
But then again, we're adding just more competition in the industry for the girls that have been in it. But it's a plus side for everybody else. I almost said plus size, but that was kind of a pun, I guess,
Yeah.
because
Yeah. It's good. I agree. I think it's becoming more inclusive, which is a positive for
Mhm.
other people. Um, but yeah, what are some changes that you would like to see happen moving forward? Is there anything?
I mean, that's such a heavy question because I think we like the inclusivity, but
Mhm.
what's happening is what we're seeing as they'll be booking girls that might have a regular client. and then they throw in something as like a one-time booking. Well, this girl, like now, and especially maybe a girl or a boy that you might manage, gets that one opportunity, and then you feel like, okay, this person's going to have a career, and then they're
Mhm.
out. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of like one-offs now, and I wish there was a little bit more consistency
Right.
with the clients. I think more and more clients are like they think they know exactly what they want and they don't. So it's again, it could be looked at as a good thing because it's giving everyone an opportunity. But I would like to see more consistency with the clients, more girls, working consistently with the same clients. But it's hard. I think everyone's kind of all over the place, and girls are also doing other things,
Right.
and maybe they're not available for their regular client and losing the client, and it's you just gotta like hang in there.
For sure. The last question I have for you, again, thank you so much for joining me. What is your favorite part about your job? Personally, what is your favorite thing?
Oh, and I love this question. This is my favorite question. Besides the traveling, and I've always been in that new faces development
Mhm.
category. I've never, and I don't want to say I've never been promoted to an agent, because when I started at my second agency after Elite, I was hired as an agent, and then I kept like showing girls and like talking to girls and talking to other agencies, and the director at that time, she was like, "You're like such a scout development girl." She's like, "They're like, I'm not going to waste your talent being a new faces agent. Well, booking kind of like the editorials and stuff." She's like, "I want you to really focus on scouting." And I think the whole thing for me, and it's why I became a mother agent as well, during the time that I was not working at an agency, is finding that girl on the street, seeing something in her that maybe she saw in herself or maybe she didn't, and doing her Polaroids and that feeling of like, wow, she's got it. And
Yeah.
this girl doesn't even know what you're saying, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, trust me. And they're like, well, my mom doesn't really. I'm like, what's your mom's number?
Yeah.
And have to trust us, because we're not here. We're not taking money from you. This isn't about, I mean, we're building a career that eventually, we're going to make commission off of.
Right.
But the whole thing is just seeing that girl from her first Polaroid to getting signed, even being on the Zooms with the girl with the agencies that she's interviewing, seeing her first test, and just, having your jaw drop, and your talent as a scout is reconfirmed. You're like, I knew it. I knew it. And that feels so good. And I think that's just maybe that's my dopamine that I
I'm
get.
the same exact way. That's my exact answer when people ask me the same exact thing.
Awesome. And it's not about the money. It's not like, oh, she just did calls today for 2,500. Yeah, that's great. But it's that whole, like, just that whole process getting there. And then if she does something big, or he does something big, or walks a big show, as you've got several, and it's just you just can't, you're so impressed with yourself.
Yeah. Yep.
I
I'm so
I
happy for them too, right? Like it's like, I told you, I told you.
I love that I told you. And I would say 50% of my models that I've actually scouted from nothing, not girls that have submitted to me or wanted to be models, ones that I've reached out to, I'm like, hey, you should be a model. And they didn't believe it. And they're like, I never pictured myself doing this. They're like, I was content being a volleyball player,
Yeah.
so.
Just trust the process, trust the professionals.
Right, but that's, brings me like, who do you trust? The person that
Yeah.
stops you in the mall, because there's going to be me, or there's going to be Joe Schmo.
Right.
You know,
Do
it's
your
like,
research. You got to do your research. And that's what
yeah,
I always say. Do your research.
we need to
Uh,
do a whole segment on, what to look for, actually.
for real. Well, Hannah, thank you so much for joining me. I can't wait to see you in person again, hopefully soon. And we will talk soon. Thanks so much.
I'm gonna have to drive up to you.
Yes. Good. Talk to you
See you
soon.
soon.